One of the most important things I look for in a quarterback is their willingness to feed Patrick Laird, and that's what Tua did at his first career snap under center. Pat, we're discussing Tua. He's interesting. There's pros, there's cons. We need quarterbacks. We don't need quarterbacks. Where are you at on Tua?
Well, yeah, I think that might have won him the job, that Laird throw, and I'm intrigued by Tua. We have a couple teams where we lost Dak Prescott, so we're thinking about quarterbacks more than we normally would be. So I think we'll have some interesting discussion on him.
Yeah. So we're still figuring out what this Wednesday show, the shape of it is going to be. To pull you behind the curtain, how the sausage gets made. I send the link to join us to all of our co-managers. So I don't think I need to get Crack Rock on there. I don't have Crack Rock's email. I have his DM, but we send it, to Davis, to Sean, to Gretch. Who am I forgetting here? Blair and Hassan. Yeah. So they can hop on at any time. We did get some feedback. There was an iTunes review. I think I mentioned this last week. They want to hear us talk about our teams more. I know not everyone plays in FFPC leagues. They want to hear us talk about waivers. So, we're open. This is kind of an open forum, right, Pat, to discuss what's on the mind.
Yeah. And I don't know. I feel like we can, to pull back the curtain a little bit further, Pete and I have started doing calls ahead of this where we actually get the bids in so that we can talk a little bit more generally about what we're doing and not go so into the weeds, and for the purpose of not literally giving away the exact bids that we're about to give in 8 of these high stakes leagues. I do wonder if we could just maybe one of these weeks just do that because no one expects us to. And we could just have one week where we actually say our bids. You like that idea, or is that a little too out there?
I mean, the thing is as we progress through the season, the stakes get heightened. Like, I remember our friend Eric Belair, the very first week, our shit show waiver show, where he's like, this was entertaining, but there's way too much money on the line to actually be doing this. And that's how I feel. Our teams are doing really good. Like, when you look at points wise, standing wise, our teams are in great shape. Even our quad managed team that started slow because we had injuries to Julio and Galladay and AJ Brown.
Go through it, pull them up?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Like I said, we'll check in on the chat. If you guys have specific waiver wire questions that you guys want us to get into, we can do that. But let's talk about some of our teams here. Which one do you want me to pull up first?
Pull up the first main that we drafted. This is the very first league we drafted. We had the 105, I believe, and we got Kamara to fall to us. And we're doing pretty good. I mean, we had McKinnon unlocked here. We have Higgins was a pickup, did not draft him. We went pretty heavy to make sure we got him. We added McNichols last week, so seeing his role this week was pretty intriguing. Quarterback, we had drafted Carson Wentz here. We've pretty well sorted that out with Herbert. And there are some other quarterbacks on waivers. We may swap out Teddy Bridgewater this week.
Yeah, this is I mentioned he's a guy that is tough for me to think about, because one thing Pat reminded me, and I've been probably too generous in my own mind's eye projection of Tua, and that he's going to rush a decent amount. We know that is one of the skeleton keys for fantasy quarterback performance. And Pat, what is your cold water take on Tua not being as big of a rusher as we might hope?
Well, that he didn't rush all that much in college, and he has this hip issue that he had a major hip injury. And so I would expect that they won't have any designed rushes, I wouldn't imagine, to start off with. And, he might be a guy who scrambles around a little bit and we get a few rushes here or there, but I don't think we're going to get a major amount of rushing. I mean, his junior year, his final year at Alabama, he had just 17 rushing yards. The year before he had 190. But I think, maybe you could get up to kind of a Daniel Jonesian level of rushing, but that's, you're not going to see, I don't think, much more than that, and probably not even that.
I get pretty excited when you say Daniel Jonesian. Did you see his 54-yard run this last week? Next gen stats popping, one of the fastest guys on the field. I mean, I'm sold.
Yeah, so actually that was probably a bad comp because Daniel Jones had 104 rushing attempts his final year, 161 before the 141. He never had less than 300 rushing yards in a season. Tua never had more than 200. So he's actually sort of a tier below Daniel Jones as a rusher. He's not really in that Bortles, Daniel Jones, Josh Allen type of run around, and actually get you some rushing yards guys. He's more like, he's a little bit less than Burrow.
Yeah. And that's what I've been trying to unravel in my mind as I think about our quarterback situations in these leagues as it pertains to Tua. Like last year, we added Lamar Jackson to our teams or was that 2 years ago?
No, 2 years ago.
2 years ago. I was going to say, no, we did not have him on our teams last year. 2 years ago, when he was a rookie, we added him and he was installed as the starting quarterback around week 12 or week 13. And he showed us a really high floor with his rushing. He was getting us 20 points every week. He wasn't really exceeding that because they weren't allowing him to pass much. And so my thought just in my head, as not being deep in the weeds on the Tua rushing prospect profile, was like, oh, maybe we can get a decent floor with the rushing. And then he also has these weapons that let him pass and he'll give us a really combination high ceiling here. That's where I was wishing that that's what Tua would be. But now I'm a little worried that I'm being a little over generous with what he can give us.
Yeah, no, I think it's more like a Joe Burrow type. And maybe, I don't know. I don't know what to expect in terms of how much downfield throwing we'll see, but a lot of the value will be through the air. What's up, Hassan?
What up? What up? We got our guy, Hassan, ready to spit the hot takes. We knew Hassan. We didn't get confirmation, but when DeAndre Swift pops off, Hassan's logging in.
Yeah, buddy. Congratulations, man. Look at me in the in the presence of two high stakes DFS grinders. It's great.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Just living the dream. I actually was gonna ask both of you here, just to go back to one of the props that Pat and I actually put a side bet on that I am 100% losing. We had Hunt versus Akers, and we both were talking a little bit about Swift's ceiling. And let's just say it, man. What the fuck is wrong with these people drafting running backs?
This is the classic Hassan rant. Like, you think he's going somewhere, and at the last second he zags to another spot.
Better.
He's like, let's talk about Kareem Hunt and DeAndre Swift. How fucking dumb are these guys drafting a bunch of running backs?
Just watching, people were taking stands with their ADP and just thinking Akers is that much better. And dude can't even beat up Malcolm Brown. Malcolm Brown, man.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about with Pat earlier. I'm not ready to fully victory lap 0 RB, but I'm fully ready to victory lap robust RB being the dumbest fucking strategy ever.
Yeah, it's even in retrospect, right? You can go. I'm just trying to think of any running back that's really going to return value. And now with Miles Sanders set to miss at least 2 games, what are we talking about here? And Joe Mixon has been an RB3 or worse in 4 of his starts.
I actually think that gives the strategy too much credit to talk about Sanders and Mixon. It's really talking about the guys when there was robust RB was about taking those running backs in the 3rd, in the 4th, in the early 5th, when the value was clearly with the wide receivers and tight end premium with some of the tight ends. And so it's really who are the hits in that range? The hits are David Montgomery, David Johnson, Todd Gurley. The hits are disgusting.
And sure, we lost there's a bunch of 0 RB guys going and stuff that have been gone, but watching Montgomery get 100% of the backfield work and then just turning that into 58 yards or whatever he did on Sunday, it's been pitiful, man.
I'm so
Chris
sick
Carson
of this
in the chat.
Yeah,
Chris
dude,
Carson,
you guys, you can cherry pick any single one example of everything. Do you need us to cherry pick how many 0 running back? Do you want me to say James Robinson, Myles Gaskin? Do we need to run down this road here?
It's true that was the one nice hit, and there's always going to be that guy. Sometimes there's more.
Yeah,
sometimes there's a couple of them.
We're talking probabilities here.
Yeah.
We should actually be fully transparent and talk about like our first waiver run for the quad because we really needed a running back, and we went in on Bryce Love, right? And that, even in retrospect, I'd make the same mistake twice because we were taking a probabilistic shot at a backfield that just let go of Adrian Peterson. James Robinson went for like $6. I think Myles Gaskin went for like $2. Like you just had like all these guys who turned into like viable fantasy starters week one and keep the role that went for like nothing in your budget, like $6 of $1,000 budget. That's nothing.
Yeah.
So, and this is the thing, like, actually, let me pull up our quad right here because this is a good illustration of what 0 RB teams look like, where we're sitting here. Let me hide our bids. We're at 3-3 here. And
make sure to check Crack Rock put in bids, by the way.
Actually, yeah, that's a good talk. I will let you guys talk about this because I haven't checked the Crack Rock teams yet. But this is a team that started a little slow. We're still good on points. We're still good here. But this is a team that gets stronger as the season goes. This is a team that didn't have A.J. Brown, that didn't have Julio Jones, that didn't have Kenny Golladay early on. And now we lost Sutton. And we lost Sutton. Now look at the starting lineup and tell me who wants to fuck with this starting lineup.
Yeah, and this team just put up 170 points. So it's not just that we're excited about it in the future. It was our highest scoring team of all 8 teams on the week. And it also does look quite good going forward. But we are starting to see this team climb up the points, and we're 3-3. We're 3-3. This is we lost Kittle for much of the start of the season. We lost Golladay for first few weeks. Julio obviously has been in and out. So it's been tough, man. It's been tough. And yet this team is 3-3. I believe we're 9th in points, but we just had our highest scoring week. And we're setting them very nice for this week as well. So it's exciting.
We were, remember we were actually targeting, and this is just because my brain works like this. We were targeting Swift and Rojo, and whoever the guy was in this league reached like a round and a half on Rojo, right? Like we were looking, that was our turn, and that's what like put us into Kyler. I was gonna ask, can you guys pull up the ship taking team, because that one is just gangbusters, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to multitask here, Pat. There are no bids in for the Crack Rock.
I knew it.
We did our call. We did, guys. I just want you to know like how this works. Like we have so many teams. And I know there's all these grinders with all of these teams, but this is what complicates it. You have different co-managers. You have different logins. We're using the 444 sync to see what we got. So I'm having to log in and out of Pat's account. The Crack Rock team fell through the cracks, so to speak. And now I'm going to do those, and I will pull up this ship taking team.
Let's talk ship taking, and then let's do the bids on Crack Rock together, but we won't say the exact bids.
Okay. Here's ship taking. We're now logged into my account, so you can't see our bids here. But go ahead, Hassan, while I set the groundwork here.
Yeah, no, like I was actually gonna say that like this ship taking squad is ridiculous. I remember like during the draft, Davis mentioned that he thought this was like ostensibly a better team than the quad, and at the time it looked wrong. But like I'm willing to agree, right? Like you guys, and even when you go back and watch the clip of Pete drunkenly reviewing this squad, like it just
which you should do.
Which, by the way, you should, because literally everyone who Pete like cusses out is just like
my Zach Ertz take.
It's pretty good. Your Blake Jarwin take, it's held up well.
I'll never stop making excuses. I'm allowed. I literally miss. So all my, we have all our FFPC leagues. I'm in my, home leagues, my keeper leagues, my ESPN leagues with friends, my 12 o'clock waiver runs. Missed them all today. For the first time this season, Peter Overzet just missed waivers completely. I finally met my match. I'm too busy. I can't do it.
Yeah,
anyways, go on.
Just how it goes. But I mean, like, look at this roster, right? And like, you guys aren't even starting Antonio Gibson, who is actually a viable player, and he's a viable like in a smash spot this week. I mean, you know, like that's just how strong this team is.
We did lose quarterback. We literally don't have a quarterback. So someone earlier in the chat mentioned that we talk about quarterback a lot. We normally don't. We almost like ignore it too much. But we're in a position now through the bye weeks and through losing Dak on a couple of these important teams where we are thinking about it a lot more than we normally would be. But that's kind of the weakness here. And the other weakness, of course, is tight end, where we lost Zach Ertz. You could say we lost Zach Ertz week 1.
We lost Zach Ertz the second we drafted that bum.
Yeah. But officially, he went down last week, and now we got to figure out tight end.
Am I allowed to drop Rodrigo Blankenship? I mean, he's on bye, but the dude's been crushing.
What a pick, yeah.
All right, you guys have your conversation. I'll put in kicker bids for us.
One of the weird things, and you mentioned this on a recent ship chasing Pat, was like the inability to and the desire to not want to raw dog it with QB for the week, right? Like, there's no opportunity cost anymore, people. Like let's just get 12 QBs should be rostered, right? Like, there's no the marginal value you're getting from removing those points from the pool is not good enough. I mean, like, my guess is there's a handful of high upside quarterbacks in every league that's on waivers right now. Like, Tua was like a free agent for the most part, and like he's now a viable hold guy, right? And like Herbert showed up, right? And like he's gonna keep the job. Like, it's just like hoarding QB points in a single QB league. It's not it, man. Not it, Chief.
Well, it's a good point, but I think that the real minus EV strategy is if you have more than two. But it is a season where now with the COVID testing coming out a little later because they have the Sunday test, we have been trying to keep two quarterbacks. Although the testing, we heard pretty early on Sunday that all the games were going to go. So if we have a few more weeks like that, maybe we can go back to one quarterback. But right now, we are actually trying to hold two on most teams. It's not like a must-have. I think there'll be a couple teams where we just have one. The quad might actually be one of those. But for the most part, we are trying to protect ourselves against the game getting canceled. In a normal year, we'd be much more comfortable just rolling one.
Yeah, it's that's been a difficult thing. And that's why we've started to have these conversations of, and Hassan, I'm curious your thoughts, because we've been looking at Tua, who is this black box guy from a fantasy perspective. But then on a lot of waivers, you can still get a Jimmy Garoppolo, a Derek Carr. And some of those guys have both schedules and weapons and things that make them relatively appealing from both a floor ceiling perspective. How are you viewing Tua in that context?
Yeah, that is kind of tricky, right? Because like what attracts me a lot to Tua is his actual rushing upside, right? Like the Miami Dolphins weapons are good, but like they're not great, right? Like Derek Carr, for example, he seems to really have taken. He's feeding like Waller a lot of targets, but at the same time, he's so much better when Ruggs is healthy and actually playing. Because that boom ability, right, for like Ruggs to take it to the house on like any given target, that's really where the ceiling for Carr comes from. And he does get a handful of favorable schedules that set up kind of poorly for Josh Jacobs as well, right? Like, and that's, the teams that are going to dare him to beat them through the air. And I mean, call me crazy, but like the Raiders might actually have a good enough receiver core to where they're not afraid of like Carr airing it out, for like all the complaints of him, like, chucking it short of the sticks and so on. At the very least, we know he's going to be in a handful of high scoring shootout games, or at least games that have shootout potential. And that's what you're chasing, right? Like you're looking for the opportunity, like a spike in raw volume, but you're also looking for like the efficiency to remain. And when those two kind of connect, man, like you're looking at a pretty big week, right?
Yeah. I've been trying to revise my opinion on Carr, and I think he's aided by the fact that he does have Ruggs, but he doesn't have to rely on Ruggs. His number one wide receiver is Darren Waller, basically. He's not going to Renfro quite as much, which is probably good. And instead, he can get some of those targets deeper down the field to Ruggs.
That's what's exciting to me about Carr, which I feel is a weird sentence to say, but he has this floor. He also has a schedule. Like the Raiders have the nut schedule. They have 3 home games through the fantasy playoffs, 14 through 16. That's big in a dome, weather-controlled environment. And Ruggs is really what unlocks him, because the whole thing we've established for fantasy scoring, we need guys that can pace the game up, that can score in an instant and turn these games into track meets. And Henry Ruggs is that guy. He's really the difference maker. And I know it might just seem like, oh, this is just one random piece, but when he's healthy and when he's producing, like he turns teams and games into entirely different fantasy projection standpoints.
Yeah, although Chris is saying that the O-line could have COVID. I don't know. I haven't heard that. Have you heard any issues?
My grinding has missed that. Have you seen that, Hassan?
Well, my grinding's missed it too, but I guess I'm gonna go check Roto World here.
All right, let's talk about some. I saw people wanting to
they sent home the entire starting offensive line over COVID-19 concerns.
I think Josh Jacobs will be fine, man.
All five offensive line starters home.
And against Tampa Bay, I mean, they're one of the worst defenses in the league, so that should be fine, right?
All five starters. That's crazy.
Wow, I miss this. I'm too busy.
Well, we might want to update the bids, dude. We might need to update the bids. First of all, the game could get canceled.
Yeah, the game.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is just too much.
I'm
trying to set crack rock bids right now.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris G. You might have saved us this week, including in ship taking where you're in the league. So very selfless of you.
All right, sorry guys. This is the problem with this show is, we're trying to do an entertaining show. We're trying to talk. I was about to start talking about Antonio Brown because it seems like that's what people want to talk about. And then I realized we need to go adjust a bunch of Derek Carr bids because I missed all of this.
Yeah. So like Antonio Brown is an interesting, it's interesting and fun to talk about him. But what's really interesting to me is that somehow none of the concerns that everybody else had about rookies and don't really apply to Antonio Brown, right? Where's the at least hesitancy to rush to the waiver wire for him because he's got going to be facing competition with a handful of veterans who've also been establishing rapport with the starting quarterback. For the most part, he's just going to be showing up on a team and ostensibly trying to get, he probably keeps in ridiculously good football shape, but he's got to get at least up to speed in game shape. And then on top of that, you're kind of hoping that he lands in the right spot, right? Seattle, the people were talking a lot about Seattle as being the nut spot, right? I don't really see him getting as much usage as people think he will.
That's not the nut spot. Why is the nut spot being the wide receiver 3? How is that the nut spot?
At best.
Also, Josh Gordon's going to be there, isn't he?
I don't get that. That is such a warped sense. You think Antonio Brown's just going to step in and cuck Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf?
Well, no one cucks DK Metcalf.
No, I mean DK Metcalf is the cucker. DK Metcalf is the one who knocks.
Oh yeah. Oh god.
I am the one who cucks.
DK Metcalf is the one who cucks.
Grown ass. Yeah, that's right. Cobra Kyle said Philly is the nut spot.
That's a good spot. That's a good call.
Spot.
Yeah.
They're running out Travis Fulgham and Greg Ward. Yeah, absolutely. And Antonio Brown's definitely.
They'll convert him to tight end and he'll crush.
I don't get it. I mean, we saw this play out. Pat and I were talking about this last year. Pat and I were in Vegas for the FFPC drafts. We had just started our main event draft. Adam Schefter bomb. Antonio Brown signs with the New England Patriots. A murmur goes across the lobby. Everyone talking about where they're going to draft Antonio Brown. We're going to take him in the late second, the early third. How did that work out? How are people getting off on thinking Antonio Brown is just going to step in and crush? I just don't get it. It is such wishful thinking.
But what year is it? I mean, the last time we saw Antonio Brown, his efficiency was falling off of a cliff. And then he he required a significant amount of targets to return 18 points in New England. And then he was gone. Right? This is very very AJ Green-esque almost, except he's got to change teams now, right?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because we are in the Kentucky Fantasy Football main event, which is 3 wide receivers, 1 flex, 2 running backs. So it's more wide receiver heavy than the FFPC, and AJ Green is on waivers. So it's what's the difference here, except that you might expect more volume in the near term for AJ Green. So I don't get the excitement.
I was actually shocked AJ Green was on waivers.
It was surprising.
Just because of that format. We've seen it just to give you guys a frame of reference, in the FFPC waiver, let's use Gabriel Davis as an example of a guy who's like popped, he's flashed, but doesn't have an established role. Like he'll go in the 20 to 40 range in these FFPC leagues, and then he'll go in like the 90 to 100 range in KFFSC. And that's just the premium of being able to start up to, what is it, Pat? 5 wide receivers, right?
No, just 4, but you have to start 3.
But you have to start 3, right? So you can't jam in 3 tight ends. You can't jam in 4 running backs. So it just tilts things in the favor of wide receivers a little bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. What is your guys' take? Like, I'm not gonna shame anyone too hard for putting in a $5 bid for Antonio Brown, but the dude's gonna go for an absurd amount, right?
Yeah. I
think he'll go for at least 150, maybe even 200. I wouldn't. 250 wouldn't shock me.
This is the thing too. Like, I see a lot of people are asking Deshaun Jackson or AJ Green, Marcus Robinson or AB. Like, to me, the way I think about all of this stuff is like, I'm thinking of the season in these 3 to 4 week chunks. Do you have teams that are really hurting right now that need production over the next 3 to 4 weeks? Or are you set up nicely and you're trying to crush weeks 14 to 16? And if the answer is the latter, I just do not understand how names like Deshaun Jackson and AJ Green and Antonio Brown are like figuring into your calculus. Like, I just don't see how those guys are winning leagues for you.
I mean, there is like a very long shot that AB gets there, right? Like there's like but it's going to require like a not like 95th percentile like outcome. Like you need him to suddenly somehow overtake a lot of these entrenched wide receivers. Philly's a good one, but Dan Masterson here did mention he'd rather have Rager, and we saw Rager kind of just, coming on, right? Like you would prefer Rager to AB. I mean, partially because he's the future of the franchise, right? Like,
and also like that's been a pattern we've seen. Like, people undervalued what these wide receivers could do, even wide receivers that Pat and I personally undervalued. We've been pushing the rookie wide receiver trade since July, and even us were under relative to T. Higgins. We corrected that mistake in one of our main events and going heavy for him. But these rookie wide receivers are going to win leagues. We've already seen it with Justin Jefferson,
Chase Claypool, Justin Jefferson.
Oh
and,
my God.
And Ayuk and Rager and these guys are still coming.
No.
We haven't seen the end of this.
No, we haven't.
It's ridiculous, right? Like, I mean, like there was that report back in like late July where they were saying like Jefferson's running behind Chad Beebe and BC Johnson, and now he's basically turned like Thielen into just this like Thielen's role on that offense is just to do what he used to do. He's just not as good as like Jefferson. Like, I mean, like Jefferson is taking targets away from him. This is how you earn targets. Just watching that, you know what I mean?
Since I'm the only one here who actually subscribes to The Athletic, I will defend the beat reporters here. It wasn't just a report. He did play behind BC Johnson in week 1. And then he kind of played equal with him in week 2. And then it was off to the races. So they did bring him along slow. The thing was to not overreact to that and buy into his rookie profile, which was quite strong. We didn't have enough of him because we were so hyped on Rager, the royal we there. That was more me than Pete. But I'm still excited about Rager. I do have some Justin Jefferson in Dynasty, luckily, because it hurts to not have him in high stakes.
Yeah, and I mean, I was on board. I shared relative to Pat his enthusiasm, but in general, though, I shared an enthusiasm for this rookie wide receiver class in a macro sense being different than rookie classes previously. And that is what is borne out. Like this is a historic wide receiver class. I do think this one will go down as better than the 2014 class. I honestly believe that.
I'm with you 100%. I mean, like realistically, just thinking about it, right? Like we haven't, like you said, like Ayuk, we're still waiting on guys who have got these ridiculously high draft capital like expenditures on them, that we haven't seen this like 30-point upside from them. Like we have like this explosions from like CeeDee Lamb and Jefferson on an almost weekly expected basis. Like, you know how quickly it took in Dynasty to make Jefferson a starter? Like it was like 2 weeks.
And how long did it take Devontae Adams from the 2014 class to be a stud?
Like
a long ass time.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. I mean, this class is popping quicker and better than any class ever. It's insane.
Well, that class did have Odell Beckham. Let's remember that.
But Chase Claypool is doing what Odell Beckham did.
True. That's true.
I mean, it's wild. And people in the chat are talking. They're saying Brian Edwards looms.
Yeah,
Pittman looms.
Pittman's coming back. Yeah,
Mims looms. Sean Siegel just penned a thing. If you missed out on Claypool, go target Mims. I mean, like this class is just brimming with talent.
It's wild.
It's ridiculous because we typically miss on a few, and everyone who's been hyped so far has matched it, right? Like we're holding patterns for guys like Mims and Pittman, and even Rager. And I mean, like what we've seen Rager do a little bit on the field, if you watch the games, I mean, like it's tantalizing, right? Like despite how dysfunctional that offense looks.
Yeah, and he's had bad injury luck. He screwed up his shoulder making a tackle on a Hurts interception in practice. Then he tore the ligament in his thumb. So, just some fluke injuries. Luckily, nothing lower body. He should be like 100% of all of his athleticism when he gets back. Pete, can we talk real quick on the waivers here? Because I know.
We got some time to crack here. What do you got? What do you want?
So I took the ship taking quarterback bids and adjusted them. I put that in the G chat that we have. So check that, or you can just check the ship taking team if you're logged in. But our Crack Rock's bids good?
I mean, our team's so loaded with Crack Rock that I only set kicker and defensive bids for us. We have no one to drop. Like the team is just loaded. It's absolutely loaded.
All right, cool.
I'll pull it up here real quick.
The big dog.
So this team, and I say this in that we have a little tough week in that we're having to start Jamal Williams, but it's like, okay, who are you going to start? Are you going to start Keenan Allen or Odell Beckham? Are you going to start Hunter Henry or TJ Hawkinson? Who are you going to drop? Are you going to drop Benny Snell or Gus Edwards? No, these are like two of the most premium handcuffs going. Like, I mean, the team, I guess we could drop Irv Smith, but there's no one even to drop. I mean, this team is. I mean,
Irv Smith's coming on. He would snapped up if we dropped him. He would get snapped up.
I'm just feeling pain dropping Rodrigo Blankenship. I mean, this team is great.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah. So let's talk about. I want to talk about here a couple interesting things that we've been discussing today with our bids. Let's talk about JaMychal Hasty, because Pat and I have been facing an interesting decision here where we have he's available in a lot of leagues. He carried the load down the stretch for the 49ers, although Jeff Wilson wasn't inactive. So that's a piece of the puzzle that's interesting. There's teams where we're desperate for running back production. However, there's other teams where we're not so desperate. And coincidentally, we have Jerick McKinnon on those teams as well, where we already essentially have a bet on that backfield. I'll go to Pat first, then we can toss to Hassan. How are you guys viewing JaMychal Hasty from both a short-term and long-term upside standpoint?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting discussion. And there's sort of a larger point here because you get to this point of the season and it's about what you're viewing this particular player, their range of outcomes, but it's also you need to be bidding based on where your team is at. What do you need for this team? Are you behind? Do you need someone who can fill in and get you a couple wins so that you can have a shot at making the playoffs? Or are you looking really solid and you have running back depth already and you're looking for guys who can pop for you later on? So Hasty's not that. Hasty's not a guy who really has the profile of where he's all that probable to be a playoff winner. He's much more that first part where you're like, I need a running back starter over the next couple weeks. We have some zero running back teams where we could really use that. And so we're bidding somewhat aggressively for him there. Where we don't need the production over the next few weeks, where we don't even know if that production is really there. It's kind of speculative with Hasty. We're not bidding much at all. So you're seeing a pretty, like we're kind of doing some bare minimum price enforcing on Hasty. I think there's maybe in a league or two we're not bidding at all because we don't have a drop. And then there's some other leagues where we're going, not like super heavy, but fairly aggressively to get him. So it's a little all over the map, but in a strategic way that fits the particular team.
Real quick, I saw Ferguson say, how much for Fant in FFPC? I mean, go hard.
Unload the clip.
Unload the clip. That's a gift. That's a gift. I mean, Pat and I would fall over ourselves to go after Fant on some of these teams.
I would literally, like, Fant is a guy, I would be like, I'd leave myself maybe like $50.
Yeah. Absolute smash. Absolute smash. The context of what really framed the hasty discussion for me was starting to think about Gus Edwards. And because people forget that I'm now an information news grinder, it came out that this Mark Ingram ankle sprain isn't just a low ankle sprain. They're now evaluating it as a mid to high ankle sprain, which we know can be a 2 to 4 week recovery. They have the bye this week. But I am incredibly interested in Gus Edwards in leagues where he's available. Luckily, we have him on a couple of our teams already. But it was hard for me to unload the clip for Hasty, especially in these teams that are set up good. And this talks about these 3 to 4 window chunks. I think Hasty's a better 3 to 4 window chunk probably than Gus Edwards. But Gus Edwards could be an absolute smash if Ingram misses more time or they just come out and continue to phase Ingram out of the offense. Where are you guys at on Ingram or on Gus?
I'm with you. 100% with you. I mean, like, look, Ingram hasn't been all that effective this season thus far, right? He just hasn't. And he should be theoretically getting phased out for Dobbins, but turns out Gus Edwards, pretty good, right? And like, if this is going to be a two-headed backfield, well, it's always three when you have Lamar. Yeah, I get it. But Gus Edwards is still getting a lot of the touches, and he's got enough explosion to where he can turn it into a touchdown. I would much, much, much rather have Gus Edwards than JaMychal Hasty, if only because, much like you said, look, like, we don't know. We're just kind of like projecting as far as Ingram goes, as far as Ingram's role goes. We don't know. For all we know, they could put him on season-ending IR after this stint. We don't know, right? He could look like crap when he comes back, just like kind of hobble through, look old. We don't know. There's that asymmetric upside by like chasing Edwards, by chasing Dobbins. And maybe Dobbins shouldn't be on waivers. But if Edwards he needs to be rostered ahead of Hasty, in my opinion, because I'm trying to like figure out when Tevin Coleman's coming back. I got to figure out what Jeff Wilson's role is. They still have the fullback there, Kyle Juszczyk. Mostert's going to be back. McKinnon's still not going away. I mean, like, it's a little bit easier when you pare it down like that, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, there's leagues where we need Hasty, but for the most part, I want to be in position to prefer Edwards, that you're in the position where you don't need the guy this week, so you can think longer term. And there's no doubt that Edwards has more upside long term. It's kind of interesting when you look at the contract situations because Mark Ingram can be cut after the season. He looks like a realistic cap casualty, especially with how inefficient the running game has been this year. You have in Gus Edwards, a guy who's a restricted free agent. Normally those guys get tagged with some kind of tender, but I would imagine that there's at least some inclination to see what they really have in Gus Edwards to know if they want to bring him back. So there's certainly the possibility that Ingram is phased out a little bit and they see if Gus Edwards could be kind of a lead down back to Dobbins offering more of that passing down type of role, which is what we saw last week after Ingram was hurt.
Yeah. And, the Ravens' entire situation is a little bit tricky, right? Because the offense hasn't been as good. They're not passing to the running backs. It's a three-way committee, but I think it is fair to still assume that this offense can get a lot better. And if we remove one bad element in Mark Ingram, like, things really start to open up. I mean, Gus and Dobbins can both become very relevant. We've talked about this many times. If you get out of these three-way committees and you condense them to two-way committees and you have guys that fulfill their roles within that, as Gus as the goal line hammer back and J.K. Dobbins as the explosive pass catching back, I mean, both those guys can be very viable for fantasy.
Absolutely. All right, boys, I'm going to hop, and good luck with Locke here.
Thank you, Hassan. Always great. You always have it. Check out Hassan on the RotoViz report over on RotoViz. Check him out at HR115. Did I get that right?
Close enough. It's a bunch of letters and then numbers.
Yeah. Always bringing the hot takes.
You'll find it.
Later, guys.
We'll see
Later.
you. All right, we've talked about Antonio Brown. We've talked about JaMychal Hasty and Mark Ingram. I'm trying to think of some other situations that we've been talking through earlier. Dick Rod, tight ends.
Yeah, let's talk about Dick Rod. Richard Rodgers, who looks like he's going to get probably the start because Goddard, I don't think, is going to be back, right? Is that the latest today?
Yeah.
So Dick Rod, Richard Rodgers, likely to be the starter here in Philadelphia. And that classic situation where you can pick up a guy Wednesday. If you don't start him, you can throw him back. So he is the clear guy. I mean, because there's not a ton on either of these offenses that we really want to get a peek at. He's really the only obvious guy to do it with. So kind of sets up well where we have teams that need a tight end. And so we're trying to get him onto those teams. Especially nice when you need a tight end like long term. You're trying to add some tight end firepower to see if he can fill in and get some targets while Ertz is out.
Yeah, we've been in our ship taking team, which is a loaded team at running back and wide receiver. We're really hurting. We had picked up Fitzpatrick because we missed out on Tannehill and Dalton. And so now we're scrambling there, and now we lose Ertz. So we're really struggling there. And this tight end dilemma is something we've been trying to think through. There's actually a couple interesting spots where Fells and Ferkser are available on a lot of wires, but you're having to gamble. Is Jonnu, is Jordan Akins going to play? And do you want to run that risk? There's an appeal in Dick Rod in knowing Ertz and Goddard aren't going to play this week. Do you just plug and play him against the Giants and eliminate having to guess on Saturday, Sunday morning whether those other guys are going to play? I'm leaning toward the Dick Rod side.
Yeah, and I'm not on team Dick Rod over team Fells if I knew that Fells was going to be the starter and Akins was out. But I don't know that, and I have a chance to potentially lock up some Dick Rod on Thursday. I'm going to do that, I think, then pick up Fells and then not even have a starter and have already passed on the guy who, who knows, maybe had a nice game. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little tricky. People saying that Akins didn't play today. One thing I'll say about now that I'm a grinder, I mean, Wednesday practice reports aren't as indicative. You'll see veteran rest days. You'll see you'll see just basic maintenance rest days. So I don't think we want to read into them too much. That said, I do like to look for I can't talk, dude. I'm getting so drunk.
Are you even drinking?
I've been drinking a lot. Yeah. So I said I was going to scale back my drinking, and then I got really excited. I did a show with Brick and in Osimo, and I was like, I got to drink. Anyways, what I was going to say is I do look for abnormalities, right? Like if Julio Jones misses a Wednesday, like whatever, he's going to do that. But Marvin Jones, first time this season, missed a Wednesday practice. That's kind of interesting to me. So anyways, as far as the Akins missing, I mean, he's been missing games. It doesn't worry me. I don't even know if that's the right word. I don't know. I'm going to wait till Thursday and Friday to worry about Jordan Akins is what I'm trying to say, Pat.
I guess, but you made the opposite point earlier, which is that we should just pick up Dick Rod now and start him so we don't have to worry about it.
No, that is my point. I'm not like banking on Jordan Akins missing this week because he missed on Wednesday is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Got it. That does make a lot of sense.
Here's the thing, guys. I'm trying to scale back. I had been drinking like 5 to 6 nights a week. And I said Wednesday is my one night I can drink. I do these shows. We have some drinks. And yeah, I'm a little toasted right now. But I do think this
what? I'm gonna get a drink, Pete. I'm gonna
get a drink. I hope I can come up with something to say while you're gone. Yes, it's waiver wire lock. People are on Dick Rod. Friday is the day you want to see if they practice. That's right. Exactly. What am I drinking? I had 2 things going. I've been still drinking tequila. I've been mixing between whiskey and tequila. This is actually, look at my coaster here, stuck. This is coconut 1800 tequila. I like drinking that just on the rocks. And then I've been drinking Fat Tire beers. I live in Massachusetts, but I grew up in Colorado. I have a soft spot for Fat Tire beers. And that's the deal. That's the deal. Thank you, new esports fan. Thank you. But one thing that is actually fun to do, because we have to be a little cryptic with our bids up to this point. But now, so what I do is I open all the tabs with our leagues, Pat, and I have the bids still in. So now we can actually show the bids.
Love it.
But they've already processed. So then we can refresh after the fact. So this will be fun. We can show you guys exactly what we did. Let me share my screen here. Except KFFSC, which I don't think has processed here. So
now,
go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was going to wonder if, Chris is the one who told us about this Derek Carr thing. And if we find out that Chris somehow took out ads in USA Today and various publications just to get Derek Carr, that's pretty good sabotage by Chris.
Yeah. All right. Ship chasing 2. So this was a team where we had both of our tight ends on bye. We feel good about Mark Andrews. Pat got us on Trey Burton. That's looking good, but they're both on bye. So we have to get some production in here. We prioritize Dick Rod. You can see here we have contingent bids for Fells, Ferkser. And you guys want to talk about grinding. Robert Tonyan missed practice today, so I put in a $1 bid for Jay Sternberger. Pat, we went for the Bills defense. We're trying to get why don't you talk about this? We're contemplating dropping N'Keal Harry here.
Yeah, I mean, N'Keal Harry, I was keeping us off dropping N'Keal Harry instead of Gabriel Davis in that bid, but we figured, hey, we can get another quarterback in this team where we lost Dak. Let's get a guy whose entire offensive line has COVID. And it's just been a real struggle for Patriots pass catchers. Damiere Byrd is out there all the time. Harry looked like he had a decent connection with Cam, but in the last 2 weeks, it's been a struggle. And we're feeling like he kind of lacks the ceiling of a guy who can make a big difference down the stretch for us.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you look at this team, it's not like we have, outside of DK Metcalf and Lamb, like there is some fragility to what we have here. We have Ayuk coming on. We have Rager coming on. But I say that very optimistically. But it's just hard to envision N'Keal Harry getting into our starting lineup. And it's hard to envision him having a big surge. There's certain players where it's like, yeah, Shenault has been solid, but you can see the case to Shenault finishing really strong. It's hard to envision what is going to change for N'Keal Harry that hasn't already happened. I don't know what that variable is. What is the light switch, Pat, for N'Keal Harry that switches on that hasn't already revealed itself?
Well, I guess the light switch would be a quarterback who doesn't rush when they're in the end zone and isn't terrible, because N'Keal Harry is not, someone in the chat said, yeah, Chris said he's so slow. Yeah, he looks really slow. I think he could be kind of like a poor man's Devontae Adams maybe, but Devontae Adams has a ton of touchdown equity and also is much better. But let's just say the profile, is somewhat similar in terms of the type of player. And if you have a quarterback who gets all of the rushing touchdowns inside, the 10-yard line, it's going to be a little bit tougher. So that's, I think if you take that away from Harry, if you take away those multiple short touchdown type of spike weeks from him, then what do you really have? You kind of have a possession receiver and a low volume passing offense. And it's hard to envision how that gives you any kind of ceiling as we move into looking ahead at the playoffs.
The Harry eval isn't about Cam. I hear you on this. He missed practices. He came back on short notice, whatever. It's about what this offense is supporting. They want to run the ball. They're doing design runs for Cam. They're not passing it at the goal line. They're spreading the ball around to Edelman and to Bird. It's not breaking right. And this is from someone who I wanted N'Keal Harry to be a thing. He was a guy I was drafting everywhere, but it's hard to imagine what's changing currently that's going to make him break out.
Yeah. And for the most part, what we're looking for are receivers who are going to give us a ceiling that the guys we currently have don't have. So we can part with the N'Keal Harry. We have Brandon Ayuk down the stretch. We're holding on to Jalen Reagor because we do think he has a ceiling. I mean, we're seeing Travis Fulgham come in and soak up huge volume in the offense. You could have a little bit of a situation like we saw at the Jets where Jeff Smith gets all the volume because there's nobody else, and then he's immediately displaced by better guys like Crowder and Perriman. I think we could see a similar situation in Philadelphia, not to say that Fulgham isn't anything, but there's certainly the opportunity here. And Rager's actually a big play guy. So if we're going to hold on to a wide receiver who we're not going to start at this point, I think we want a guy with a little bit of a bigger play ceiling or someone with more touchdown equity.
Yeah. All right. We'll come back to this and I'll refresh in a bit to see how we did, but let's just go through a couple of these. This was our other main, and this was the bid that we were talking about earlier with Gus and JaMychal Hasty, where we actually tweaked it as we talked through it and ended up prioritizing Gus Edwards. I'm going to imagine that when I refresh this, we get Gus Edwards just because this is a fairly aggressive bid for a guy going into a bye week. But my thesis was enough people didn't know about the mid to high ankle sprain for Mark Ingram. And I really think Gus Edwards could be startable coming out of the bye.
Yeah, I do too. I think we probably got him.
Yeah. So we'll check that in a second. We had a tough decision here with, we're happy with our quarterbacks, how we filled in. We drafted Carson Wentz in the regular draft. We didn't work out. And we've since done a pretty good job patching things together with Herbert and Bridgewater. And then we were kind of wrestling with, what do we do with Tua here as he relates to Bridgewater? I'm still even a little nervous looking at this bid and wondering if it's too much relative to what Tua can offer us compared to Teddy.
It wasn't too much.
What do you mean?
I mean, I refreshed those bids and we didn't get them.
Okay. I mean, you're really undercutting me here. I'm trying to build some drama as we go through these. Cause
I know you built so much drama that I want to see what we got.
All right. You're killing me. All right. Let's just do these then. Let's refresh. Wait.
Okay.
This is the first main. So we did get Tua in the first main with our Stafford, and we got Gus Edwards here. Or did we already have Gus? No, we got Dick Rod. Dick Rod, come on into the starting lineup. All right. This looks good.
Which main is this? No, that's the second main.
Yeah, this is second main. Yeah. So now we're going back to the first main. So we were going for Gus and Hasty, going for Tua, going for Dick Rod over Eno. Let's see. This is the ultimate game here. We get Corey Clement, gross. We get Dick Rod. I don't even want Dick Rod. Why do we have 4 tight ends?
I don't even remember bidding on Dick Rod here.
I don't even remember bidding on Dick Rod either. You probably put him in a contingent bid and no one went after him.
God damn it.
At least but here's the benefit of getting the Thursday guys. We can drop him.
Oh, that's why we bid on him. Because
we're going to take a peek.
I forgot my own point. We're taking a peek.
Hey, Pat, we're going to take a little peek at Dick Rod. I don't even think the other, we can go through some of the other bids because the FBG don't process as much, but this is the team we do with Sean Siegel and Ben Gretsch. This team, we actually needed a running back because this is kind of tough to decide between. How do you rank these guys for week 7? Zach Moss, Damian Harris, JaMychal Hasty.
God, I'd probably go Zach Moss 1 just for the touchdown potential.
Yeah.
And then we have to start 2 of them, huh? And then I'd probably go Hasty, who had all the rushes in the fourth quarter. And I feel most confident about his role.
Eric, I don't know exactly what you're asking. We definitely do multiple bid groups if we want to get most guys. Normally, the problem we run into is we don't have drops. We don't have multiple drops we want to make.
But so, I mean, look at the bid here. We have Hasty was the number 1 guy, then Edwards at 50. So it's not exactly duplicated, but we have Edwards again as the number 1 guy with a different drop. So, I mean, we kind of are, but we if we're just spending 150 on Hasty, we don't want to just spend the same amount that we would have spent on Edwards, because now we're down 150, so we lowered to 21.
Yeah, and we also think Pat and I were actually talking about this earlier. Like, we want our bid groups to actually say, where are they helping us? Some of these bid groups are like, we need this production now. We need to fill a tight end. We have 2 guys on bye, or our 0 RB team is weak at running back. We need a running back spot start. And some of these are like, if we get this guy, we don't want Corey Clement. We don't want the second. We want the higher upside long-term play.
You pick a guy we did get. We don't want Corey Clement.
We probably got him for $1, right?
Yeah, I put it like $60, I
think. No, you didn't.
No, I put it $1.
I can't do this right now. This is too much. Too many teams, too many drinks, too many shows.
Yeah, Eric saying we wanted Edwards and Hasty. I think that's probably just because we didn't have a second drop.
Yeah, we didn't
realize we were going to get Corey Clement, Eric. So I won't rule out that it was an oversight. Bid group should tell a story. Yeah, Pete, you want to talk about that?
No. I want to go to bed. Oh my God. I'm like literally losing my voice, and I'm like going through FPG bid groups. And I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing right now? I really hit a wall. Help me out, guys. Help me out. Pat's over here fucking popping some speakeasy.
Some sake, dude.
Sake? You're drinking sake?
I'm drinking sake. I'm drinking Desai 39, which is an excellent bottle of sake that we find for like $40. It's pretty underpriced. Desai 50 is like only like $20, and it's excellent price point.
What do people want from us right now? Do they want us to go through all these FPG guy bids? The quad, we went after Jermichael Hasty.
Go to Crack Rock. Go to Crack Rock. See if we unloaded Rodrigo Blankenship.
I need to log out and log on into my account.
It's also a tradition that we talk about the KFF SC bids, which don't process until midnight, and show that to everybody, having forgotten that they process later.
I'm just so mad because I said that I wasn't going to drink as much. I didn't do that. All right, let's see here.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone should be mad, I think it's me. I'm sitting here on the stream. You come in all blasted up.
Whatever, dude. You're rolling around in your 10,000. That's what we should talk about. We should talk about your big DFS score. I haven't heard. Was Brittany excited?
Brittany was excited. Yeah, I did. I'll say, there was. You said that Lauren actually said it's about time. Brittany didn't say that with her words, but certainly there was the attitude that came through of, yeah, okay. That doesn't seem like enough. There was sort of an attitude of that for the amount of time that I spent on football.
I mean, how much were you down lifetime before you won that?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. I don't play cash, so I just play GPPs.
Yeah.
I've like treaded water on FanDuel for a number of years because I won a couple years ago. I won a few GPPs on there doing the Superflex, and so that's just basically just. But the thing is with DraftKings, I was like often firing Millie Maker entries just for fun and stuff, and it's like you'll burn through. I wasn't down big, but I wasn't playing all that much. So this year, I really tightened up my game selection. And through the first few weeks, I was like up maybe a couple $100 just because I'd 3x'd a couple times on some of these GPPs. But the Engage 8 is what I want. It's an $8 tournament. It's 15,000 people. That's basically like my Millie Maker replacement. It's like I've stopped letting myself enter the Millie Maker because you're just wasting your money. But it's a big enough tournament where I'm like, well, I can fire some ideas that feel somewhat contrarian, but I don't have to go like totally off the board. And for the most part, I'm doing like the Red Zone, which is a $50 single entry. And there's 2 of those different sizes. I do the Spy, which is a $100 single entry. There's 2 of those. And I was looking at a couple other tournaments that are like that.
And two, like I'm the same way as you. Like I stopped playing the Millie Maker, but to scratch that itch, I play the $3 20 max play action. And how I play it is I build lineups there throughout the week. You know, when I have ideas or I hear someone, and it's just like I fire it off, I get it out of my system, you get the crazy lineup in there, and it's a $3 investment instead of a $20 investment in the Millie Maker. And it still is $100,000 to first place. Like you're not going to beat yourself up if you bank $100,000 just because you didn't win $1 million. So I definitely think that there's ways to scratch that high upside volatile risk itch without, you know, just punting it off each week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone was commenting about talking about my positive EV for 3 years. I've like literally never talked about DFS in my life before I won this GBP. So
yeah. And now he won't fucking shut up. And now he's messaging me, should we do a show about my big win?
Yeah, I will give a shout out to Levitan's article. Free article, by the way. You check
How
that
about you give
out.
a shout out to me, my bankroll challenge video.
I'll give you a shout out.
Folded you like a nice piece of soft clay.
I did check that out after my win this week.
Oh yeah, you just wanted to hear someone talk about you.
Oh, Nick was kidding.
Yeah. No, legit. Like what Pat's win is far more impressive than mine. Like when I got third place in the SPY, that was the baby SPY, 2,222 people versus the 15,000 in the Engage 8. That's like just completely different contest, completely different hill to climb, completely different probabilities to finish first. I mean, that's a sick hit on a $24 investment. I assume you 3-maxed it.
Yeah, I 3-maxed it. Yeah.
Did you have all? I didn't hear. Did you have all Deshaun Watson stacks, or did you have different stacks?
I had some other Deshaun Watson stacks. I had a Deshaun Watson stack in the small SPY, which 5x'd, so that was nice. But that's like, I'll kind of mix and match. I like to do, and you know, I don't know, maybe this is not smart. Like I said, I'm not like a real DFS grinder, but I kind of like to think about like the lineup. And then, so I like to have like the Engage 8, I need to hit a higher ceiling than I need to hit in the big SPY. And then that's an even bigger ceiling than I need to hit in like the small red zone. So if I have a lineup that I'm like, this is really correlated, it maybe doesn't have, like maybe there's a triple stack I want to try out. I can do that in a smaller field tournament. Or if I just feel like this is maybe like it's a little chalky, I've made some pivots, but it's not like kind of crazy leverage off of what people are doing, then I'm not going to put that in a 15,000 field tournament. I'm going to put that in like, you know, a 700 person tournament. So I try to make my decisions based on that, not so much like I already have, you know, I'm going to do all Deshaun Watson in this. Do you do that? Like put all your stack in the same, or?
No, I've been like, the way I've been doing it is I normally have a couple of core plays that I want to play in all of my lineups. And then I like cycling the stacks around it. And I think you could do either way, right? Like you could have a stack that you love, and then you cycle through the other one-off or mini correlation plays around it. I mean, I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. I just prefer to have like my core guys. Like last week, I was, I think it was like Myles Gaskin. I was playing everywhere.
Yeah.
I was playing Chris Godwin in pretty much everything. And I just had a few of these core plays, and then I built around that. So I do, if you're only playing 5 to 7 lineups, I think you need to have some kind of core, whether that's a game you're focusing on, whether that's a stack, whether that's a couple of one-offs. You just want to make sure if you're right, you give yourself enough chances to be right around it.
Yeah, Gaskin was a guy I was really, really on, and I had a fair amount of Watson. I actually moved some off Watson to get, because there were some interesting ideas I thought around Stafford that Drew Dinkmeyer was talking about, so I ended up getting onto Stafford a little bit. And I did agree with your take on that Tampa Bay Green Bay game. I realized was going to go under own too, and I had some exposure to that I had moved on to too. I thought the piece, it didn't end up hitting, but I thought the Godwin Aaron Jones correlation piece was really nice. And I also had some Juju Hunt, which failed miserably. So like you just like, there is a lot of luck to this stuff where, you pick pieces that are leverage on chalky plays, you correlate them together, you put them in lineups. You don't have enough bullets to fire, or at least I don't, to where I'm like, I'm going to have this core, and then I'm going to take all these correlation pieces, all these stacks, and mix them all up. And then it's like, I had Deshaun Watson double stack with the Derrick Henry bring back, and that happened to be the lineup where I had the Jefferson Julio correlation as well, and I pretty much had Gaskin everywhere, but like I could have had that Jefferson Julio correlation with a Lamar Jackson stack, who I also played, and then you're screwed. And it's like so I don't know, you just try to try to have the right process, and then you also do need some luck.
I know, and I was busting on myself because I finished in third to last place in the mini spy this week, 2220th out of 2222, and that's that same thing. Like my game stack didn't hit, my mini correlations didn't hit, but like I oddly feel better about that. Like I want to be in last or I want to be in first, and the thing I keep talking about is like shots on goal. You want as many lineups finishing in the top 50, and then you just hope you get lucky on the perfection part. Like being good is top 50. Getting lucky is top, 1 through 3 or whatever. But if you're putting shots on goal, you're good. One thing I wanted to talk about, Pat, because some people I saw in the comments of stat chasing, obviously it makes sense. You win and people are like, Hey, I want to do that. I want to think through this. And let's talk a little bit about how you view stat chasing and that in-depth research you do as part of the bigger puzzle. Obviously, it's aiding our waiver wire decisions, but how that flows into the DFS process, which so much changes by the time you record that on Tuesday to Sunday at lock. Maybe set some realistic expectations for people for how they can leverage stat chasing, but not let it be the end-all be-all.
So for me, stat chasing is like, in the show, I say it's the foundation for my week's research. It truly is. Like I'm just taking like those opportunity stats, and I'm giving you some of my thoughts on it, but I like to have that so that then when I go and I read Stealing Signals from Ben Gretsch, and I listen to some really great podcasts like Ian Harditz's podcast where he breaks down the games, or the Roto-World podcast, or I'm listening to, then I start to get into some more like kind of classic DFS stuff. Like I listen to all the ETR pods. I'm listening to all sorts of stuff. I'm actually blanking. What the fuck is the podcast? The Swolecast. I was meant to mention the Swolecast, and the sake is getting to me. So the Swolecast, I listen to all that good stuff. I listen to all sorts of great content. And so, but for me, it's like, it helps prevent me, I think, from getting like pulled too much into like the directions of like what, so like if I'm listening to the Swolecast and you guys are talking about like a particular player, I'm not like, I'm going to jam them into my lineups, because I already feel like I'm like able to be like, yeah, no, I kind of agree with that. Or, that's something I want to go look at some more and see if I agree with it. So it feels to me like I'm able to like incorporate new information into, like, I already have a prior, basically. I have a prior for that week, and then I can absorb information and update my process as I go along. And then later in the week is when I'm really starting to look more at like the salaries and the ownership. And then I'm saying, okay, I like this guy. He's going to be the chalk though. So it doesn't mean I can't play him, but I just need to know that. So I've already been like, this guy's interesting. This guy's interesting. And then I start to look at like, well, what can I play in combination? Because if this guy's going to be super chalky, then I don't want to play him with this quarterback, and this game stack or whatever. So I'll kind of try to layer on top. First, I do the research and do the show. Then I'll try to layer on top other really good information, some more stat-based, some just kind of DFS-focused stuff. Then I'll actually go look at the salaries and the ownership, and then I'll kind of really start grinding the lineup creation stuff on like Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing, and I'll agree that dynamic that Pat said, where if you don't have an established process for yourself, and this was me, up until this year, you're very susceptible to like recency bias. The latest thing you heard is the most impactful thing. You hear someone say on a podcast, Antonio Gibson is a great play this week. And in your head, you're like, I have to play Antonio Gibson. But so much changes throughout the week and the dynamics of the slate shift relative to ownership. Even if what you aren't consuming has changed, what the public is consuming has changed. Ownership has shifted. The slate has now shifted. So it's really important in what I've started making my own spreadsheet. Like I have my own, it's very rudimentary. I'm pulling in projections. I'm pulling in ownership projections. I'm pulling in a few other different data points I like. And then I check that on Saturday nights and Sunday mornings, and I can look at the data. And a lot of what I'm doing is literally just looking at ceiling projection relative to ownership and trying to identify spots that might go low owned. But to Pat's point, it anchors you. And that's why consuming the stat chasing and the ceiling signals is so important, because it anchors you from those biases, because it is convincing. You listen to people talk and they sound convincing. They sound like they know the answers. None of us know the answers. Right. So I do think it's really important to use that stuff as a primer and not as the end all be all. Just because Pat says on stat chasing, like, oh, this person's routes are up, blah, blah, blah. If that person is getting owned 75% in a tournament, it doesn't fucking matter. They're a bad play. Like,
or if they didn't practice all week,
or they didn't practice all week.
Or if we get some new context about why that was the case, and now the routes might go way down because someone's coming back or whatever. I mean, it's meant to help you realize what happened in this past week, and then you can add stuff to it all week. I mean, I've been doing things in a spreadsheet too, and one thing that I do is one reason I like doing that is because then I can update the spreadsheet on Sunday morning with Levitan's new ownership projections, and I'll see, like, this happened to me a couple weeks ago. So remember, was it 2 weeks ago where Mahomes was kind of the obvious GPP pivot? And it was so obvious that he ended up being super chalky.
And Dak went under-owned.
This was the week that he got hurt.
Yeah.
But I had a Mahomes lineup that I thought was just awesome. It had like all the pieces. It was like, I had kind of the contrarian leverage correlation, mixed with a game stack that I liked. And then I looked at it on Sunday and it was up to like 175% cumulative ownership. It was totally dead. You just couldn't play it. So it's like, well, shit, I got to blow this up now. And so that's one reason that I like the spreadsheet, is because you update it, and then you force yourself to be like, well, the thesis of this lineup is now wrong. Like, it's not, I don't have the contrarian things I was doing are now chalky. And so I've got to change things up. So that, helps point me in the right directions of like what I need to be focusing on Sunday, I think.
Yeah. And I think that's the ultimate key. No one's saying like you have to have your own spreadsheet or whatever to be good, but I do think you need a process that you can anchor yourself to, so you're not a plastic bag blowing in the wind every time someone says something on Twitter or a podcast of this is a good play. We've already been through this. Like, it's the blender thing too. Like, you can play whoever you want. Pat could play Derrick Henry at increased ownership if his stack and his other correlation pieces around it were relatively contrarian. Like, you can do anything you want as long as you're mindful in those pieces. So anyways, I know this is technically a redraft season-long show, but after Pat's big score, I saw a few comments about that in the stat chasing and how to apply it. And I think the primer is the best word. It's the primer for the week. And you haven't put on that final coat of paint, but you have that base layer that informs everything you're going to do.
Yeah. And I would the game selection, I think, is the key thing, because like, just to have more fun, frankly, it's more fun when you have a legit shot of at least 5xing in a tournament, not even taking it down. But like, if you're able to see like, oh, this lineup did really well, and this, you can start to see like, oh, it did well because I did some of these things, or man, if I'd only done this, it might've been even better. And you're getting some feedback that's really valuable. As opposed to like, if you're firing into these huge, like Millie Maker style lottery tournaments, you're not really getting any feedback, and it can feel fun to fire, but it doesn't feel fun to actually play it. Like, the experience, I don't think, ends up being that good.
100% agree. And it's tough. Like, you know what? I go into the actual DraftKings app on your phone has way better like filtering than on the desktop. And you can go in and you can set filters for the max amount of entries. Like if you want to go in and set like sub 5,000 entries and 3 max possible lineups and under, you can do that and you can see those contests. And look, I've been there. I've sorted by most amount of money you can win. But really, like you need to be looking about at the amount of entries in the contest. And for me, that sweet spot has been under like the 5,500 and lower, and 3 max, maybe 5 max and under. There's a $33 5 max I like. So yeah, I do think being realistic about giving yourself a chance to win. Like Bales just had his newsletter. He's been writing a lot of great stuff in this about like the probabilities of stuff. Like we have to think in probabilities. Your probabilities of winning the Millie Maker are so minuscule. But if your probabilities of playing a 200 person tournament, a 1,000 person tournament, those are realistic chances if you're putting in positive EV lineups. Like give yourself a chance to win a tournament.
Yeah. And TJ Hernandez had a good article on 4for4. I was looking for some info on trying to find some new GPPs that I could do. And he was analyzing the score that you need for each of these tournaments, like the average score that wins. And basically it was like, this is off memory, but I think it was like just over 4 points more every time the field size doubles that your lineup needs to hit. So like you end up, by the time you get up to these super high fields, like you have to get everything right. And Pete, you were talking about this on your bankroll show, like how many things do you need to get right? And it's fun, I think, to create GPP lineups where you only have to get a couple things right. And you can win a GPP by getting a couple things right if the field is small enough. And that's a lot more fun to me, where I was like, you know, I correctly predicted a couple things and then I hit big off of that. And even in the lineup that I won in the Engage 8, I got a couple more things right. Like I got Burton right, was a one-off piece. But he was chalky as hell. And so I kind of went with the wisdom of the crowds on that, you know, and he was cheap. So it's like, it paid off, but it wasn't like I went off the board there. I didn't go crazy.
This is actually a good question, and it actually illuminates how big contest selection is, because in my big wins, when I go look how much I would have won in the Millie, it's like peanuts. It's minuscule to what I win. Pat, did you see what you would have won in the Millie?
I didn't check. And
my guess is you would have won like $1 or a couple $1,000, probably like $1,000 or $2,000. But you weren't winning 6 figures in the Millie. No. It's just that's the whole point of,
because my defense did nothing. So like there was stuff I was totally wrong about.
Yeah, I mean, I think Blender, he won the slant, and he had the Steelers defense who went off for 18 points, and like he had ceiling from all of his stuff. Like it's just, and I think even Smiz had a screenshot recently too of all of his lineups in the slant where he had like a 2.5 or 3x versus in the Millie Maker where he legit lost money. Like the Millie Maker it's a lottery. It's a complete lottery, and it's still fun. Like I play DFS for fun. Like I get it. I get the appeal. But if your goal is to ever take down a tournament, you have a much better chance in a contest that isn't 150,000 entries.
Yeah, there's some pretty cheap 20 maxes as well. I did that. So when Ronald Jones was going against Carolina in that week 2 game, where it was like the original Ronald Jones week, the one that failed, and Leonard Fournette ended up kind of stealing the game, I was like, I want to play Ronald Jones so bad. And I literally 20 max, I think it was like $1. I think it was like maybe a $2 fee. So I was like, I'll pay $40 for all the Ronald Jones lineups that my brain can think of. And and if Ronald Jones smashes this week, it'll work out. But I'm not going to put these into the SPY. I'm not going to put them, into the Millie Maker and just fire away money. I'm gonna give myself enough of a ceiling to where I'll feel like I was right. I feel great about this, but I'm gonna try to prevent myself from being overly enthusiastic and losing money.
And that's honestly, like, to put a button on this and tie this back to the season long, since that's what a lot of people listen to this show for. Like, what's so fun about DFS is if you can remove your biases, and this used to be hard for me. Like, we have bagged on these running backs who don't catch passes throughout the entire draft process, but you can play Derrick Henry in week 6. You can play Josh Jacobs in week 1 against the Panthers. You can make these plays. The whole thesis of why we dislike some of these guys is because how the probabilities play out over the course of an entire season. You can play Joe Mixon 2 weeks ago when he goes off. Like, that's what's so beautiful about DFS.
Yeah, and to tie it back to season long, Myles Gaskin was mega chalk. Myles Gaskin, who no one was drafting, who was a waiver ad, because running back is highly predictable week to week. And that's part of the reason that we go 0 running back, because now that we have Myles Gaskin, we know to start him, and we found him on waivers, or that we're going, now that Raheem Mostert's out, we can plug in Jerick McKinnon where we have him. We can bid on JaMychal Hasty when we don't. We're going to pick up Jeremy McNichols, because if Derrick Henry goes down, we know to slot him in the lineup and he will be a smash. So as you're playing DFS, it's like, wow, it's really hard to predict every week who the right receivers are. You can pick the expensive ones. You could pick Chris Godwin when he's not loaned, and he just fails to score the points. It happens all the time, and it happens in season long too. But you give yourself a better chance when you do have the studs that you can just leave in your lineup for basically the whole season, as you use the more predictable nature of running back week to week to play that as a more of a weekly game, and then over the course of many weeks, you should have a higher ceiling at your wide receivers, and you'll have those Julio Jones type of games. You'll have hopefully some of those breakout games like we're seeing now from guys like T. Higgins, and you'll have access to that ceiling that your league mates who are banking on Golden Tate might not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. It's like, season long it's a puzzle, but the pieces are bigger. You're making more like macro decisions, and DFS is like one of those 500-piece puzzles where you have all these different levels of player projection. You have, what are the coaches going to do? What are the ownership percentages? Are my competitors going to think about those ownership percentages and make different decisions based off of that? Like, there's so many moving pieces. Oh, the last minute inactives come in, and that changes the projection. So it's just like a different game, but I do think it works in concert. And, Pat does stat chasing. He's been grinding. I do the newsletter every morning, the Fantasy Life newsletter. Like, I do think these things build on each other. I don't think it's coincidental that Pat and I have had both $10,000 DFS wins this year, because this stuff all works in concert with each other. The thing is, you got to be able to put all the pieces together, and that's kind of the art versus the science part.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anything else you want to hit on here before we shut things down? This turned into a DFS pod in the second half, but it seems like people enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I think it's okay, because we are kind of touching on some of the same principles. I mean, the weekly game aspect of managing these teams, I mean, that's where we're at. We're in the bye weeks. We are playing the weekly grind, even in the high stakes. I don't think the football guys' bids have processed, so we can't really go through that. I did try to get Jalen Reagor, and we got him in the quad. I don't think I even cleared that with anyone. I just put in a bid for him.
Sounds about right.
So we got him. Are you psyched, Pete? Are you psyched about Jalen Reagor?
I'm through the moon, man. I mean, the team where we're loaded with wide receivers, I love getting
I just put him in at $2 and never told you guys.
This is what it's like to co-manage.
That's how you quad manage, baby. That's a quad managed move right there. I knew that it was like kind of the thing where there were too many managers for anyone to catch me.
Oh, I wanted to check in on ship taking, the one with Davis. We did. We had Fitzpatrick. This is the team we had lost Dak Prescott. We got both Tua and Jimmy G, which I feel good about. That's a nice combo there.
Nice.
So I love this team. Like, the team that has Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins, Alvin Kamara, and Ronald Jones is so sick. We mentioned QBs are weak point. I feel better getting Tua and Jimmy G, and then tight end is really what we have to work on. But we did get Dick Rod here. So, man, I still love this team. I think it's nasty. Although it feels weird to have a team with only 5 wide receivers on it.
Yeah. Well, this is, again, the team that you roasted in very hilarious fashion, but it has turned out to be quite the team.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that we're starting to get quarterback figured out. We got Dick Rod, you said, right?
We got Dick Rod.
All right. So we're starting Dick Rod in this one.
The week 7 waivers without Dick Rod. I forgot to check who we got in Crack Rock. Let's check here real quick. All I put in was kicker and defense, so that's who we got. All right, guys.
What about Robusto G? Do we get Jermichael Hasty? We spent $150 on him there, and we got him.
Okay. Yeah, we got Hasty. Of course, we made a hasty bid. I have a couple co-managers, but they aren't allowed to have a login. I don't know how you guys do it. We trust each other. We have a good Pat. I would say we have a good checks and balances system. You know, like we're busy on Wednesday afternoons. Pat even said this today. Like one of us has been more busy than the other most Wednesdays, and one of us does a first pass. We go in. Like there have been times where Pat has checked me. Today, I ended up flipping our Hasty and Edwards bids in a league. Like it's important to talk it through because you see it from one angle. Then we're bouncing with Davis. Davis has a bid high. We try to anchor him low. He says you're too low. We pop it up. Like I do really think that helps.
It does help. I think having done this for a number of years together, we kind of know like when to go, like what really matters, what doesn't matter in terms of like, am I going to make a stink about adjusting this bid? Or is this like, am I just kind of happy that you have some thoughts? You know, it gets to a point sometimes where it's more like, I want, you know, if someone's going to do the bids, then I'll kind of defer to what that opinion is. And then it also helps, I think, this is the most leagues we've ever been in. And when you're in more leagues, then you can, you know, it's like, well, let's go a little bit heavier on Hasty here. Let's go for Edwards here. You can kind of spread out the decisions a little bit. You don't have to be kind of so anchored to what your opinion of it might be.
I think that's a really good point. You could extrapolate that to a lot of things in life. When you're emotionally invested in one single thing, you make more rational decisions, you know, when you're in all of these leagues. And it also can be like, oh, I missed out on him. I can hedge here. I can hedge in DFS. Yeah. I can grab him in Dynasty or whatever. I do think that's important. And that helps anchor me. Like I'm super excited about Tua, but I can also realistically look at like, oh, hey, everyone in our league just went heavy for Andy Dalton and Ryan Tannehill last week. None of these guys have bye weeks. They're all carrying 2 quarterbacks. How much is Tua really going to go for? We throttled down his bid price from 88 to 35 in ship taking when we got him. So I think that stuff it's important and it's not a lot. Like, yeah, sure. It's just $50, but you never know where you can use that $50.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, guys. This has been fun. A few plugs. I believe going into this show, we were at 499 YouTube subscribers. I hope we're over 500 now. I know there's a decent amount of people watching this that haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that if you haven't. I mean, we're doing all of this for free. Pat's crushing it on stat chasing, putting a ton of time into it. All for free. We have people asking us for more. They're like, do more graphics. Tell us more DFS game theory. Guys, this is a free show. It's a free show that Pat is putting lots and lots and lots of time to. So the least you can do is subscribe, share, rate and review on iTunes, all that good stuff. We don't ask for a lot, Pat, but they can subscribe.
Yeah, subscribing to the channel would really help. We're trying to build that up. So, you know.
We appreciate that. So, yeah, this is Pat and I love doing this show, but it's always very nice when we get your guys' feedback. Feel free to always leave comments, hit the like button, hit the subscribe. You guys can check us out on iTunes. You know, we'll try to mix in some more. We did that Friday show a couple weeks ago with Ben Gretsch. That was fun. We'll try to mix in more of those. If there's other stuff that you guys particularly like, let us know. This is our baby. This is our show. We're open to different stuff. So it's been a great year. Our teams are humming along. We're having good DFS seasons. I think we're set up for a fast finish, Pat.
Yeah, I'm really excited where we're at. We have 8 teams. I think we have 2 5-1 teams, 2 4-2 teams, and 4 3-3 teams in our high stakes portfolio. They're all doing pretty good in points. So it's all setting up. We need to finish strong, but we use a strategy that's designed to finish the season stronger than it starts and to really dominate during the bye weeks. So I do feel pretty optimistic about where we're at.
Yeah. All right. I see the comments. Thank you guys all for the kind words. I will say too, can we get a big LaVisca week so I can update the highlight reel? Like I'm banking clips. Like, don't think I don't have clips to add, but I need the punctuation mark LaVisca game, Pat.
Yeah. And this was a big DJ Shark week in the opportunity. I highlighted that on Stat Chasing. I don't know if we're there yet. And Keelan Cole was used deep downfield this week, so I don't know if we're going to see it this week. I hope we do. But I'd love to see just some more production in general out of this offense.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you back next week for Stat Chasing. Maybe we'll get the band together for a Friday show. But thank you as always for tuning in. For Pat Crane, I'm Peter Overzet. Chase those ships.